So let us now see the composition of food. What is food which we say are chemicals made up of? Really, which are those chemicals? First, we will broadly categorize them into the main group, and then we will see much more in detail. Food contains chemical molecules. Basically speaking, there is nothing called as a biological entity or a biological molecule. Even if you see a whole human body or a whole plant structure or a whole animal, they are basically assembled chemicals, different types of chemicals, and the food which we eat becomes a part of the body, becomes a part of the living system. Therefore, food contains certain chemical molecules which are determinantal in the growth of a cell or an organism as a whole. Chemical composition may be determined in the laboratory, as I just said, and the tables of food compositions are available on site. Now, what are these chemicals? Chemical substances, they are found in the largest amounts in food. Chemical substances in various forms, and the thing which forms the base of all these chemicals is water. Water activity is needed. So basically H2O, this forms a very important chemical in all types of food. Water, it is found inside the cell, in plants, in animals, etc. Water, carbohydrates, fats and proteins, these are the main components, basic components, chemical components of food. Therefore, they form the basic composition of food. If you speak about water, all foods in some form or the other, even if the driest of the food, they contain some water, except for some what you can say dried foods, which is a separate category. But more the amount of water present in a food, more the food is perishable, means the shelf life is less. Shelf life is how much amount of time or for how many days you can keep the food without getting spoiled. This majorly depends upon water. The water which is free, means which is held inside the cells, these maintains the property of a food. Means free water is held inside the cells, it maintains the properties of free water and may be removed by pressure. Whereas bound water in food, they are available in two forms. Now try to understand, when food microbiology, when we are seeing these aspects, you have to take a perspective of a microorganism and microorganisms, means the type of microorganisms which can attack the food or reside in the food, make available this water, and thus the chemicals determines the quality of the food, spoilage of the food, nutrient value of the food is all dependent on this. So these are all interlinked. We will just decode all these things and then you go on linking the things how they are related to each other. So free water and bound water. Bound water is a part of the molecular structure. It is you can say not dynamic, it is static. If you are talking about a cell and the water present in the cell wall or the water present in the cytoplasm, that is a component of the molecular structure and it does not retain the properties of free water. You cannot call cytoplasm which contains, we say that all the food or the cells, they are made up of 70% of water, but most of the water is bound water. This has to be very clear. And the free water is the one which can be removed off, dried off. If I take one food and put it in an oven, all the water will be evaporated by heating and water is removed. That removable water is free water, and the ones which forms the component of a cell, organelles, etc., that is bound water. The most important part here is water activity. More the bound water, less is the water activity. Means, as I said, the cytoplasm, if it contains water, it is not available for other reactions. It is a component of the cytoplasm. If there are tears in my eyes and lysozyme is an enzyme, that is not available. It is a bound, you can say, though it is free when it comes on the upper layer, but inside the actions of water, they are bound. So water activity is the ratio of water vapor pressure inside a system. Here we are talking about food. Ratio of the vapor pressure of the water in a system, you can say in a food, at a specific temperature to, that is the ratio of this, what, vapor pressure of water in a food at a particular temperature to the vapor pressure of pure water at the same temperature. This is water activity. Means if I am talking about, let us say you take any food, you take bread, a loaf of bread, the amount of free water which is there, how much is there, and how, at what temperature it can be evaporated. At the same time, free water, now this is the water present in bread, the temperature required to evaporate it off, the ratio compared to the temperature, same temperature, how much the pure water pressure, water vapor pressure is, that is water activity. This water activity is very important because it determines the free available water for microbes in the food. Microbes which are growing on the food, they will always rely on free available water, and thus the water activity. It is actually given by this formula. See here, AW, small a and a subscript of water. This is the formula for water activity, and it is the ratio. It actually is the ratio of water vapor pressure in a food to the water vapor pressure of pure water at the same temperature. Both should have the same temperature. Got it? So foods, these are perishable if water activity is high. If more the water moisture content, more perishable. Perishable means they are prone to attack by microorganisms. Microorganisms, they need water. If you want to reduce the water activity and make the food more, what you can say, stable, shelf life longer, not perishable, then dry it, freeze it, add sugar or salt, which we do in pickles and jams. You remove the water activity. Once the water activity is removed, it is not available, so the microorganisms cannot act and the food remains stable. So these are sort of preservatives. So water is used in food preparation. It is a universal solvent. Transfer of heat can be mediated using water very efficiently. Water can be frozen and thus the water activity can be reduced. Water is a good cleansing agent. Remember, we rely first on water for cleaning, not sanitizers or disinfectants. The basic solvent which is a very good cleansing agent is water, even till date. Promotion of chemical changes are brought about very efficiently by water. Means if you add salt, baking powder in water, the chemical changes which water can, I can use a word catalyze, that's not the proper word, but it mediates the process. Promotion, it promotes the chemical changes very efficiently, and thus it can also be responsible for the pH of the food, which is second important point. And water, as you know very well, is very important in hydrolysis reactions. The nature of water, chemistry of water, you know very well. I will not dwell into detail. It contains two hydrogen atoms bonded with covalent bond to one oxygen atom. It is dipolar, negative on oxygen and positive on hydrogen. It has hydrogen bond. This is the chemistry. And water, it has a certain amount of hardness depending upon the chemicals present in it, salts present in it. Hard water and food preparation, if you see, it has a certain, what you can say, significance in food preservation. Temporary hard water and permanent hard water, these are the two sources. If you see the groundwater, it is hard, but the RO water or the mineral waters, they are sort of soft waters. The hard water and food preparation, as I say, have a significant correlativity. Rehydration and softening of foods is slowed down if water is hard. As chemical components are present, minerals are present, softening of the food is not there. Alkalinity, which is again related to water, may affect the color of vegetables, and in some foods like tea, etc., it can promote cloudiness. Therefore, water can be softened, and water softeners are available in the market. Why we are seeing all this? Because water is directly related with food. Next chemical composition is carbohydrates. Carbohydrates, they are simple sugars. There are complex carbohydrates like starch and fibers. It is made up of hydrates of carbon, CHO, hydrates of carbon linked with oxygen molecules, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. So that is carbohydrates. Chemical composition, I will just go through this very fastly because in various other topics you have studied these. Classified by number of basic sugar units linked together. Monosaccharides 1 unit, disaccharides 2 unit, oligosaccharides 10 or fewer units, polysaccharides up to 1000 or maybe more units. Monosaccharides, examples are glucose, fructose, galactose. Disaccharides, the example are sucrose, glucose, fructose, that is sucrose which is made up of glucose and fructose, lactose which is made up of glucose and galactose, maltose which is made up of glucose and glucose. So molecules of repeated units of glucose. When it has alpha 1,4 linkage, maltodextrins, dextrins are formed. When this maltose undergoes alpha 1,6 linkage, that is cross branching, it forms starch. So that is how these units, what is common in all these? Glucose. Glucose, it links with other sugars, disaccharide. Now this is the composition of food. Try to understand. Food is made up of, when we say carbohydrates, it is either be monosaccharides, disaccharides. What is there? Why we need to see this is when a microorganism settles on a food and it metabolizes it for its own food, and we have a deteriorated food, we have certain byproducts there which may be beneficial, which may be harmful, or which may be neither beneficial nor harmful but spoil the quality of food. Similarly, in carbohydrates, oligosaccharides like raffinose and stachyose, which is not broken down by our digestive tract, they are found in dried beans. Polysaccharides like starch, which is made up of amylose and amylopectin. Dextrins, means this is, as I said, repeated molecules of glucose with a certain cross branching, they give rise to dextrose, which are part of components of many foods. Today in this world where ready-made foods are what you can say aplenty, many, and people are more and more tilting towards ready-made foods, you will have all these things in a very complex form in the food. Dextrins are produced when starch molecules are partially broken down, not full, and this is used as a thickening agent in many of the jams, jellies, ice creams, etc., bakery products. Glycogen is also there. Plant fiber components are also used in food preparation, form a composition of the food. Plant fiber components, they are called as dietary fibers, roughages, or bulk component of the food. These are cellulose, hemicellulose, beta glucans, pectic substances, vegetable gums linked together in chain. Okay, many of the foods you will find all these things. The browning of foods is one process which forms a part of the composition of food. Means when you process a food, what happens is that I don't know whether you know or not, there is a sweet item, milk based sweet item called as milk cake, or it's also called as Kashmiri Kalakand or Ajmeri Kalakand in various. It has a certain brown color. From where does this brown color comes? It is not additive, it is caramelization of the sugar present in the milk. After heating, when you convert the milk into khoa, heating of the sugars above the melting point gives rise to a acceptable, favorable, with a certain taste caramelization, which forms the composition of the food. We are seeing this in the composition, don't forget it. Similarly, there is a Maillard reaction which involves carbohydrates. The carbonyl group of sugar, this combines with the amino group of a protein with the removal of water. Okay. After addition reaction, brown pigments are formed. This is usually done in food processing. Browning of bread, which is there during baking, it has a sugar, the carbonyl group of sugar, and yeast which is added. Yeast, Saccharomyces cerevisiae, is a huge heavy protein source. This protein, amino group of the protein, combines with the carbonyl group of the sugars, and at a certain temperature water is removed, bread gets dried off, and a brown layer from the top is achieved. You see, it is not a burnt reaction, it is a Maillard reaction. It forms a composition. Brown color of the bread is a part of the composition of the food, or the brown color of milk cake, that is caramelization, is a composition. So you have to see this composition of the food in various perspectives. The next composition is lipid or fats. Lipid or fats, they are usually insoluble in water. They are greasy. We are not talking of lipids and fats inside the body. If you eat more lipid and fats, they will become more lipid and fats. Microorganisms which thrive on lipids or fats, they have enzyme called as lipases, and they undergo a reaction called as lipolysis, convert the lipids into what we have just seen, carbohydrates, and then ultimate form of carbon which is needed is glucose. But this is one of the nowadays all the bakery products and most of the junk foods, they rely heavily on lipids and fats, and that again becomes a component of your body when you consume it in excess. So insoluble in water, they feel it's a greasy feeling when you have a lipid or fat in food. There are three major groups of lipids: triglycerides, phospholipids, and sterols. Triglycerides, they account for 90 to 95% of fatty substances in the food. They are composed of three fatty acids, linked atoms of carbon with organic group, means the triglycerides, they are composed of three fatty acids, one molecule of glycerol. Fatty acids, they are the combined triglycerides. Fatty acids, they differ in the number of hydrogen bonds which are attached and the length of the carbon chain. You should have studied in macromolecules, so I will not dwell into deep again. Carbon chains, they are certain numbered. Various types of fatty acids are present as a composition of the food: saturated fats, unsaturated fats, monosaturated fats. These are some of the types of fats which are present in the food and can be utilized by microorganisms for when we talk about the quality of food, can be utilized by your body to become a component of your system. Omega-3 fatty acids, these are one of the types of fats. Polyunsaturated fatty acids with double bonds between third and fourth carbon from the left on the structure. If you see the structure, you will understand this. This is found in fish. And it is, they say, omega-3 fatty acids, that is the cod liver oil type of, these are very good for heart diseases. Linoleic acid, it is essential fatty acid, cannot be made by the body, it has to be consumed in. Why we consume food? Because there are many chemical components in the food which our body cannot synthesize. We are heterotrophs and we have to rely on external sources for food. So linoleic acid is essential fatty acid, cannot be made by the body and must be taken from external source. The cis and trans configuration of the lipids or the fats also plays a very important role in the composition of the food. Cis is hydrogen atom on both sides of the bond, trans is hydrogen atoms on opposite side of the bond. Next is phospholipids. We are seeing different types of lipids which are the components of foods. These phospholipids are found in relatively small amounts. It functions as emulsifiers. One side of the molecule, it attracts fat, other side that is repels water, that is attracts water, sorry. It emulsifies. Emulsifying agents are used in food, and that is the function of emulsifying agent. Emulsifier, on one side it attracts fat and other side it attracts water, and then it forms a emulsion, liquid emulsion. So the next type of fats, these are sterols. You see the fats, they are in huge variety, huge groups, and all these types of fats today are a part and parcel of the composition of food which we consume. Whether that is good or bad, that is a area of nutrition, human nutrition, which I will not speak here. But sterols, cholesterol, it is a sterol, widely known sterol, found only in animal foods. It is associated with the coronary heart diseases. Our bodies also make cholesterol. Plant sterols are also sterols which are present in food. Phytosterols derived from, they are called as phytosterols, derived from plants, and they interfere with absorption of cholesterol. So fat in food preparation from ancient times is very common, like tenderizing in baking foods. contribute to the leavening, means cream, fat, cakes, the creamy layer which is there, creaming with fat and sugar, promotes moistness. When you have a fat in the food, it always maintains the moisture. Therefore fatty foods are very prone to microbial attacks, and they deteriorate very easily. Major components of the salad dressings, means oil which we add on the top. Even when we go for some oily seasoning, that is the fat which is added into food. With presence of fat or oils, you can extend or elevate the temperature of cooking, and that gives you an advantage of baking, frying, etc. It contributes to a certain flavor, culinary, that is the taste value. Culinary value, I don't know, maybe more or less, but the taste is enhanced when you add things like butter, cheese, oil, etc. The next component, composition in a food, it is proteins, very important part. It is essential nutrient in food preparation. It has very multiple dynamic roles. It allows the binding of water. It has the capacity to form a gel like consistency. It is one of the desirable character in a food. Food preparation, aesthetic values, how it looks like. A food is very nice, jelly, you see a jelly looks very nice as compared to a hard candy, isn't it? So formation of gels in certain types of foods, bakery usually. Thickening is done, or when you have food which gravies, the thickening of a gravy is easily achieved by proteins. Then it can produce foams, froth where it is desired, and it aids browning. Protein, it contains again carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, and sulfur, phosphorus, and iron as its component core material. Large proteins are there, hundreds of thousands of amino acids which are joined with peptide linkage. Protein is a basic source of amino acid. Structure of proteins, again I will just introduce you and we will move forward, because you have seen in your lecture somewhere else its structure: primary structure, secondary structure, tertiary structure, and quaternary structures. These are there. Primary structures are long chains, simple single long chains. When it has a coiling or a spring like formation, it becomes a secondary structure. We call it as alpha helix. When it forms more coils and branchings, that is globular proteins are formed, and the combination of various globular proteins with certain other bonds forms a quaternary structure. The quality of protein is also very important in the formation of or preparation of food. Amino acids are used to form proteins inside the body. It is not, you cannot prepare proteins as a food, remember. That is, we are talking about a biochemical reaction somewhere else inside the body or inside a cell. Amino acids are used as building block for proteins. 9 amino acids are essential for adult human nutrition. Out of the 21 amino acids which you have studied, 9 are very essential and we cannot synthesize them. Complete protein should include these 9 essential amino acids. These 9 essential amino acids are isoleucine, leucine, lysine, methionine, phenylalanine, threonine, tryptophan, valine, and histidine. These are the 9 type of amino acids which are very essential for the human body, and a good food should contain all this. Unfortunately, it doesn't. Various food sources which contain all these compositions. What are the sources of food? Means where you will find a food which is full with all these nutrients. Meat, fish, poultry, means we have two: agricultural resources and the livestock, feedstock and livestock. Livestock is animal resources, feedstock is the agricultural resources. All this chemical composition of the food can be derived from these sources. So meat, fish and poultry, eggs and dairy, nuts, various types of nuts, legumes, cereal grains in small amounts, they are good sources. The properties and reactions with respect to these chemicals when a food is formed, what type of chemistry is undergoing in the formation of a food, which are the various types of reactions which forms a food. There is a buffering reaction, there is denaturation and coagulation of what? Proteins, carbohydrates, lipids, etc. and then it forms a food which you can consume. Then there are enzymatic reactions inside a foodstuff. Means, for example, I am using starch, I will need maybe amylase to digest and convert it into simple sugars. These are the properties and reactions associated with foods. Then when a food is being prepared, or when you see a composition of a food, it has to be prepared in certain solutions and dispersions. You cannot just take a protein and consume it. It has to be in certain form. So solution and dispersions are prepared while preparing a food by dispersing the gas into a liquid. Air is whipped in the egg white. You whip the egg with egg and egg yellow and white because air is to be removed. Liquid is dispersed in liquid. Your gas is dispersed in liquid. Liquid is dispersed in liquid. Like oil, we add oil in many foodstuffs, or oil is added in vinegar and that is added in food. These are the solutions and dispersions needed for preparing good food. Solid can be dispersed in liquid, like casein protein is present in the milk, and that is a component, a solid component. If you just heat it or break the mold, like you add citric acid in it, lemon juice, if you just squeeze into milk, what will happen? The protein solid part comes outside and the liquid water remains apart. So these solutions, they can be soluble solutions, gels, foams, emulsions, etc. Solutions and suspensions, these are some of the important, what you can say, types of components in a food preparation. So this is all about the definition of a food and the composition of a food. So this is first, what you can say, chapter or whatever you call it as in food microbiology. Understand things, listen to this lecture once again by rewinding, pausing, etc. I would like you to have a pen and paper while listening to this lecture. Take down your notes. Whatever I have shown on the screen are your notes. You have to take it down and prepare your own notes. Whenever you have time, you can come meet me and get it checked. So with this, we will move on to the next point, whatever is there in your syllabus, very shortly. Thank you for listening.